The Vatican, the spiritual and administrative headquarters of the Roman Catholic Church, is an institution shrouded in mystery and intrigue. Beyond its prominent role in the global religious landscape, the Vatican also harbors a mysterious aura, with rumors and conspiracy theories surrounding its hidden secrets. From missing books of the Holy Bible to alleged alien influence, demonic possession, prophetic visions, and controversial historical accounts, these secrets shed light on a side of the Vatican that is lesser known and often disputed. There's no place on this planet more secret than the Vatican's secret archives. There are countless rumors and conspiracy theories surrounding what they're hiding down there, inside what has been described as an underground fortress, but we just don't know. Everything in the archives is so secretive that the Vatican only allows entry to the most trusted scholars over the age of 75. This is undoubtedly so that even if the scholars wanted to spill the beans, they would come down with dementia before they ever could. And while some say there are alien bodies in the archives and wild things like time machines, none of that is actually true. The truth is that the archives are full of correspondence relating to the Pope. They also hold treasure from the Catholic Church, and because this is the Catholic Church we are dealing with, they obviously don't want everyone gawking at their treasures. We do know of some artifacts being held in the archives. There was a letter from Mary, Queen of Scots, before she was killed in 1587. There are documents relating to the excommunication of Martin Luther. The transcripts from the trial against the Knights Templar are housed here. Anything important relating to the church over the past 1200 years can be found in the archives, but a lot of this stuff is sensitive material, so the church is never going to let the public get a hold of it. Even if they appear to open the archives to anyone interested, it'll probably be half the truth. Real secrets will be stashed away in an even more secure archive somewhere out of our reach. The Grand Grimoire is often regarded to be one of the most dark, creepy, and potent book in existence. Many sources claim that this grimoire was written in 1520 and was later discovered in a certain Tomb of Solomon in 1750. Furthermore, this grimoire is said to have been written in either Biblical Hebrew or Aramaic. This supposed connection with the biblical King Solomon and the ancient language it is rumored to have been written in would certainly have enhanced the reputation of the Grand Grimoire as a powerful book of magic. The Grand Grimoire consists of 4 parts and is supposedly being kept in the Vatican's secret archives. According to legend, the Grand Grimoire was written by Honorius of Thebes, who is said to have been possessed by the devil. The occult manuscript is said to contain magical spells, as well as a detailed account of how newly elected popes are slowly corrupted and then won over by the power of Satan. One of the most infamous contents of the Grand Grimoire, however, is the instructions that would supposedly allow a person to summon Lucifer or Lucifuge Rofacal. One of the instruments required for this ritual is a blasting rod, which would be used to smite Lucifer into submission once he is evoked. After this, a deal with the devil may be made. Therefore, the Grand Grimoire also contains a section entitled The Genuine Sanctum Regnum, or the true method of making pacts. Amongst other things, the person conducting this ritual would require a stone called Ematil and 2 blessed candles, both of which would be used to form a triangle of pacts, so that the summoner may be protected from the spirits that have been summoned. Whilst the original Grand Grimoire, or a copy of it, is held in the Vatican Secret Archive, a version of it was produced during the 18th century, when there was a boom in the production of cheap grimoires in France. This version of the Grand Grimoire was first published in the 19th century and spread to the different colonies that French had at that time. As a result of this, the Grand Grimoire is still being widely used in Caribbean countries that were once part of the French colonial empire, in particular Haiti, where it is referred to as Le Véritable Dragon Rouge. Unsurprisingly, the Grand Grimoire is still used widely by practitioners of voodoo in Haiti. The book is also rumored to be impervious to fire. In the year 1897, Pope Stephen VI went through a lot of trouble to put a dead man on trial. It was one of the most bizarre things the Vatican ever did, at least as far as we know. The remains of the former pope were put on trial by one of his successors. Pope Formosus had already been dead for a few months and had no way of defending himself or his honor. Nonetheless, he was disinterred, put in robes, and then stuck on the papal throne to be handed justice. A deacon was even appointed to speak on behalf of the corpse. What followed would seem like insanity. Pope Stephen VI accused the former pope in front of an audience and hurled words at him as though he were screaming at a real living person. The dead pope was, at the end of the farcical trial, found guilty of usurping the papacy. In other words, he stole the throne of Pope Stephen VI, then had all his acts while officially the pope labeled null and void. Everything Pope Formosus had done was undone. 3 of his fingers were cut off and his body was cast into a river. Shortly after, Pope Stephen VI was thrown in prison and then strangled to death. The whole point is that being the pope wasn't the best job in medieval times. They were normally complete lunatics. It was more political than religious, and most of them died young. The successor, Stephen VI, was Roman and lasted 92 days before being killed. His successor was Theodore II, and he didn't last more than 2 weeks. Who knew that the papacy was so rife with high-octane drama and violence? In 2010, Reverend Gabriele Amorth was 85 years old. He was also the chief exorcist in the Vatican, with a history of treating over 70,000 cases of demonic possession. He had a small office on the 3rd floor of the Vatican, where he operated as a very real exorcist for 25 years. In an interview with an Italian newspaper, La Repubblica, the Reverend defended his work and freely admitted that he believes the devil is a pure and invincible spirit of evil. He also told the reporters that the devil can speak many languages. He can transform himself at will and stay hidden when necessary. The very fact that the Vatican had sanctioned over 70,000 exorcisms is pretty shocking. But perhaps even more shocking is when the Reverend discussed an attack by the devil in 1981. Gabriel Amorth claimed the devil infiltrated the Vatican and tried to directly attack John Paul II. And then in 2008, the devil got back into the Vatican again and finally possessed a Swiss-Italian woman named Susanna Maiolo. On Christmas Eve, she attempted to push down Pope Benedict XVI but was foiled by the Pontifical Swiss Guard. She then went back the next year on Christmas Eve during midnight mass and knocked the Pope over. It's very likely that Susanna was suffering from some kind of mental illness, but according to the Reverend, she was a servant of the devil. The Reverend passed away in 2016, leaving behind a rather bizarre legacy of demonic paranoia in the Vatican. What do you think? Was the woman genuinely possessed? The Vatican may look like a simple religious organization from the outside, but it is a lot more mystical than people realize. They have their prophecies and their secrets, most of which they would prefer outsiders to know about. The biggest prophecy of all was delivered on March 13, 1917. 3 young Portuguese shepherds were visited by an apparition of the Virgin Mary. They were visited 6 times between May and October. Throughout these visits, the Virgin Mary gave the children 3 prophetic secrets, and these secrets were apocalyptic visions of the end of the world. After hearing about how the Vatican believes they're under constant attack by the devil, it should come as no surprise that they take these secret prophecies very seriously. Lucia Santos became the speaker for the 3 shepherd girls. In 1941, she finally revealed to the Vatican 2 of the secret prophecies. They were written down and taken away. In 1943, the Bishop of Lyrica asked Lucia to reveal the 3rd secret, but she refused. She said she didn't think God was ready for her to unveil the secret yet. But later that year, the bishop had enough and ordered that Lucia write it down. She did, but sealed it in an envelope with directions not to open it until the year 1960. The first secret revealed by Lucia in her memoir was a vision of hell. It's pretty graphic and pretty terrible, and we don't need to go into it here. The second secret had to do with World War I and World War II. She predicted that World War I would end, but that another war would quickly follow should men continue to offend God. And in that, she was right. The third secret was hugely controversial. She gave a vivid description of the persecution of Christians in the 20th and 21st centuries, along with the vision of the apocalypse, but there are many who believe the Vatican did not publish what Lucia wrote, instead keeping her secrets to themselves and making up something to satisfy the public. In the year 1684, the Vatican removed 14 books from the Holy Bible. To this day, there's no explanation as to why, and the Vatican is happier with the entire general population not knowing. There were originally 80 books in the Holy Bible when it was translated from Latin to English back in 1611. These days, there are only 66. The missing books are known as the Apocrypha, which in Greek means hidden. The missing books include Esdras, Tobit, Judith, the Wisdom of Solomon, the Songs of the Three Holy Children, Bel and the Dragon Maccabees, and the Prayer for Manasses. What's even stranger is that Jesus' name was spelled Lysis before these 14 books were removed. The church changed the pronunciation and the spelling. If they had never changed anything, you'd pronounce Jesus' name as Yahushua. Why were these mysterious books removed? There are many theories. Some say the content of these books didn't fit in with the Roman Catholic Church's narrative, so they were simply taken out. Some believe they made the Holy Bible too long and confusing, and so they were removed, but there's no real answer. None of the books were particularly nefarious, and they don't seem to include any secrets. But for whatever reason, the Catholic Church chose to remove them from the Holy Bible so that the Word of God was exactly what they wanted it to be. There is allegedly written evidence that Jesus Christ married Mary Magdalene and had babies. The evidence comes in the form of a manuscript from the 6th century, when it was translated from Greek to the ancient language of Syria. The manuscript allegedly tells the story of Jesus Christ as an adult, which is never discussed in the Holy Bible. We see his birth and his death, but not the 30 years between. The manuscript tells the story of Jesus Christ as a sexual person who fell in love with Mary Magdalene and had some babies. This is obviously controversial for a whole lot of reasons. First, the manuscript is unreliable. It's a real piece of work that was sitting in the British Library, but nobody knows where it really came from or exactly when it was written. Also, the manuscript paints Mary Magdalene as a daughter of God and the co-redeemer of humanity. In other words, she was just important to the story of Jesus, but this obviously wouldn't have sat right with the Vatican, which wanted to whitewash Jesus Christ and turn Christians into prudes. Many historians believe Jesus may have lived a much more human lifestyle than the Vatican wants you to think. A Russian professor, Genrikh Ludwig, allegedly gained access to the secret Vatican archive in the 1920s and came across some extremely disturbing information. Before I keep going, keep in mind that this has never been 100% confirmed. The story has been circulating for nearly a century, but I don't actually have any evidence that Ludwig was inside the secret archives. The story goes that Ludwig was allowed into the archives, where he discovered over 53 miles and 85 kilometers of shelving and 35,000 volumes of catalogs. There were documents from over 12 centuries of European history. While he was browsing through the seemingly endless corridors of ancient texts, he started finding things that didn't make sense. There were papers that discussed how aliens had influenced all the most ancient civilizations in the world, from the Egyptians to the Mayans. He also allegedly found historical records of nuclear-style weapons being used in ancient times. One text explains how the walls of Babylon were melted by a weapon that produced monstrous temperatures. The professor was never able to leave the Vatican with these documents. So, conveniently for his story, no one except him has ever exactly seen them. Still, it's interesting that the information about aliens visiting ancient societies and helping them progress fits with the known evolution of society. In the 4th millennium BC, the Sumerians went from a bunch of primitive hunters to building walls, laying down irrigation canals, and coming up with a writing system. It could very well be that the aliens actually helped them, and that the Vatican has known about it all this time. Then again, Professor Ludwig may just have been generating a hoax. In the Catholic justice system, some offenses are considered especially heinous. In Vatican City, the dedicated bishops of the extralegal tribunal who investigate these vicious sins are members of an elite squad known as the Apostolic Penitentiary. As the Telegraph explains, the Apostolic Penitentiary, also known as the Tribunal of Conscience, was founded by Pope Alexander III in 1179 and was basically shrouded in secrecy until 2009. The tribunal hears cases regarding sins so grievous, only the Pope can grant absolution for them. Considering normal priests and bishops can apparently deal with confessions of genocide, you might wonder what kind of mega-sins get brought before this secret court. Examples include attempting to assassinate the Pope, a priest breaking the seal of the confessional by exposing the identity or the sin of someone confessing, a priest having sex with someone and then forgiving them for the sin of doing it with a priest, performing or paying for an abortion and then trying to become a priest, or spitting out a communion wafer. Yes, that is considered worse than genocide. The Pope, acting through this tribunal and its head, known as the Major Penitentiary, then subsequently either grants absolution to the person seeking mercy or lets the automatic excommunication that comes with such grievous sins stand. Such cases are held privately and pseudonymously, as they are considered to be a matter of conscience and not public concern, which sure is a conclusion one could reach.